Welcome everyone. You're in the right place to see AutoCAD Electrical with Autodesk Inventor with your presenter, Caleb Funk. Caleb, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Jana. So good afternoon, everyone. We were going through some different topics and some different things that we could review with Inventor and, just talking through these different things. And one thing that comes up from time to time, different people have asked me, is, I know there's a way that we can connect electrical and Inventor and we connect some of these different things. I've heard about it, I've seen a few videos on it, but it's a little bit of a mystery, and which I understand. I mean, you'll see as I go through this, there's a lot of working pieces to it that we need to get into place. But that's what I want to cover, the idea of kind of how these go together. And before I even really get into those individual tools, just real quick, tell you a little bit about myself. So my name's Caleb Funk, and I'm one of the services team managers here at ImagineIt. I've been with ImagineIt for about 19 years now, and I started out with Inventor, right around Inventor 5.3. Didn't really use it a whole lot until then. And AutoCAD Electrical I started with before it was AutoCAD Electrical, when it was still a tool called VIA Wiring Diagram. So I want to talk just a little about AutoCAD Electrical. With a mix like this, I'm not sure who's familiar with, which portion specifically. So AutoCAD Electrical it's AutoCAD, but it's going to be a very specific version for control systems and control design. It's 100% AutoCAD. So anything you can do in AutoCAD, you can do in AutoCAD Electrical. So it's DWGs, it's arcs, lines, circles. And one thing that's really, really smart about it and the way that it works is we say it's fully portable. What we mean is I can take an AutoCAD electrical drawing and I can share that with anyone using AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT. So there's no special objects, special links. I can just take that drawing and share it. On the other end of that, we've got Inventor. So Inventor is a 3D mechanical design tool. And we've got it's a really powerful tool for automating advanced geometry. So sheet metal, unfolding sheet metal, doing tube and pipe runs, all of these types of things, that's what Inventor is all about. Now, it is not AutoCAD. It's written on a completely different kernel. It's a completely different set of tools, but it is really tightly integrated with AutoCAD and with AutoCAD Electrical and other tools such as Vault. And what I want to kind of talk about is we've got these very different tools. One is 100% AutoCAD. Anything AutoCAD can do, it can do back and forth. And then we've got one that is not AutoCAD at all. It's this 3D tool. So I want to work between those two and see what information we can pass back and forth as we go between them. So I'm just going to jump on here. This I thought was interesting. A friend of mine shared this with me. And when we're looking at a given machine, this is very much what we would see. This is what my end. This is kind of the world I come from, mechanical design. So yep, I take a look at that. That's exactly what I'm seeing. We've got a frame. There's manifold over there. There's hydraulics, machined information, shafts, bearings. That exact same machine, seen through the eyes of someone who does electrical design, they're seeing completely different things at a glance. Those are the things that stand out to them. So we've got this idea of how do we combine these two worlds? Because so often someone is creating this right here without any concept or thought given to this, where these pieces go and where that comes in. I've talked to a lot of electrical designers who say, yeah, it's, great, here's the machine. Now it all needs to run. Figure out where that's going to go. We've got a motor in here. Control it any way you want to. Figure out how that's going to work. So the idea of these two working in tandem really makes sense because we have to find a way where we can push this information back and forth. The electrical designs that we have for a control circuit, that may be a cable that goes on the machine somewhere. Maybe we need to get that information back and forth. Another reason that we would want to share this information back and forth is there's things that we can get from a 3D model that we cannot from a 2D drawing. A really quick example would be wire lengths. A lot of times I'll show AutoCAD Electrical and somebody will say, okay, now I want to get wire lengths from each of these. I'm like, oh, too bad. We can't pull that information out. It's not part of this. AutoCAD Electrical is a schematic. It's saying this is how this works. This is the logic behind it. And the 3D model is where things such as distance, length, height, interference, all of those things come into play. So we want to be able to work back and forth. Now, in the past, we could sort of do this. There was a way to link Inventor and Electrical via exporting and importing. And I'll touch on that. I'll just point out it's still there. It's still a viable workflow, and you could continue to do that as you had in the past. If you've ever used that where you exported information from AutoCAD Electrical to bring into Inventor, which was probably the most common way to do it, that's still there. But what has happened is this has changed a little bit with how we've added a new feature basically of how we can work with that. So instead of a static export and import, the problem we always have with exports and imports, and I do not care if it's exporting an AutoCAD file or exporting in an Excel spreadsheet, is once the information leaves, it is static. There's no link to it. If it changes, we have to re-export, we have to re-import. So many things with Inventor and with AutoCAD Electrical are based off the idea of I change it here, it changes everywhere, it's all, there's a way that this ties together. That idea was brought into working between these two. And the way that this is going to work is with an EMX file, electromechanical exchange file. And this is I'll create one, I'll kind of walk through that. It's really a simple little thing. Basically it says this assembly ties to this electrical project, and it knows which one is where. What that allows for then is bidirectional exchange, one to the other. If I change it in one, it can update it in the other. We're no longer working on the idea of I've got an individual file that I'm exporting. We've got a live link that can be synced between the two. So it's using kind of the same idea. I want to take wire information out of electrical and bring it over to Inventor. Or I've made a change, I've added a wire, and it can go the other way. I want to pull the component information out and push it back. All of it's exactly what it does. It just does it in a pretty intelligent way. And there's a few files that get created with this. So I just wanted to point that out. One of them, and I'll create one in a moment, is the EMX file, the electromechanical exchange file. And it's going to basically contain some paths. What these really are, for the most part, they're XML files, they're text files if you really want to dig into them. But the EMX contains the paths and says, here's where the project is, here's where the assembly is. So we know how those go together. Then there's going to be one called whatever the name of the EMX is, .logical snapshot. That's all the data from the electrical project and links to Inventor. And there's one called the physical snapshot, the data from Inventor and links to electrical. You probably will never care about, find the last two files. The EMX is the one we really care about. The other ones are created on the fly as we go. So this is kind of where I'm going to start with this. And I'm going to jump right into sharing my desktop so that I can get into Inventor and begin setting up some of this information so that we can begin this exchange back and forth of how we want to do that. So I'm going to share my screen. That's the one. And I'm just going to arrange a couple things here. So this is a data set that I've used for a couple of different things, and it's a car seat is what it comes down to. So this is an adjustable car seat. Here I'll have some switches and some different things to control, a few different motors down here. And tying all of this together is I've got a wire routing going through here. So I've got a cable that's going to be part of this. I'm just going to flip this around so I can see it a little bit. I've got a wire harness that's around this so I can go and look at all the information. Now I'm going to put in a couple of quick segments into this wire harness. I know there may be people who aren't super familiar with how these tools work within Inventor Professional. And you notice I've got all my components. I've got all these different pieces established within here. And then I also have my wire harness right here. So I'm going to go ahead and activate my wire harness and just add a couple of segments to it. Right now I'm not adding any wires. All I'm defining is the path that this is going to follow. So I'll say I want one here, and then I have some very useful work points out here. And I'm going to go ahead and finish that one. So there's one path that I'm going to take, and I'm going to do another one as well up to this other component up here. So I'll just come back in and create another segment. So right now, all of this information is really empty. There's nothing in it other than, I'll just finish that one so I've got it. So my harness is essentially empty as it goes through here. I haven't really done anything else to it. I want to start taking a look at pulling in some wiring information so I can run the wires from the different components. What my harness is going to define is how they get there. It's going to define the paths it takes to get to those different locations. And the benefit of that is these are real-world distances, so now I can pull things such as wire lengths, and I can begin to understand how some of that fits together. Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish off my cable and harness. So that can be done just kind of standard Inventor stuff. I could do all of that completely independently of working with electrical. So I could come in right now if I wanted to and begin to place in wires. And I can go grab, say, a Belden wire. And I could run it from a particular pin to a particular pin. But I don't want to do that because while I'm working on this portion, and I've got someone else who's been working, an electrical engineer, who's been setting up the control circuit for this. This is the logic behind it. This is how it's going to work, how it goes together. So you notice I've got my different components. I've got the different pieces listed here. All of that's in place. So I don't want to have to wire this in two places. I don't want to have to be able to set it up in one and have it completely unrelated to the other. I want to have an understanding of how these fit together and how these relate. So I'll go through the steps of setting this up. Now, this, of course, is like many things with Inventor. The weight is all on the front end. The time setting it up is going to be kind of the bulk of what I'll do here. Once it's set up, it will maintain the links and it will maintain the syncing for me automatically. So I'll go back and I'm done. Right now I don't need to place any more wires. And I've got a tab here called Electromechanical. And this is where I can go to begin setting this information up. So I'll say I want to do an electromechanical link. And in my case, I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new file that I'm going to work with. This is the EMX file. And I'll say electric Inventor. The name doesn't matter. It could be red beans and rice. It really doesn't matter. We can call it whatever we want. Usually, if I'm being realistic about this, you notice I've got this assembly's 1,500. I could name it after the assembly. I could name it after the project, but I'll just go with this right now. Now, a key thing that's going to happen here, though, is I have to specify my shared folder. So this is the folder that both electrical and mechanical are going to, both electrical and Inventor are going to look at for pulling the information. So this is where those other files that I mentioned, this is where they're going to be kind of created automatically for me. So in this case, I'll just drop out here to my C drive. And now this could be out on the server. Where this is doesn't really matter as much as I just need a file they can both access. So it's going to create this EMX file, electrical to Inventor. Sounds good. I'll say let's create that. And it tells me I have to save my assembly, which I'll go ahead and do. Okay, so I've created this portion of it. And this is really only the halfway. This assembly is linked in. I don't have any linked AutoCAD electrical project, and notice that I can't fill anything in. I'll have to do that on the electrical side. But it's taking this assembly, and it says, look, if there is a conflict between the links, which one has preference? Well, I'm going to go ahead and give it to electrical. The file naming, wire numbering, all of that, great. We'll leave that on the electrical side. But I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And I'm going to come back to this. I don't really have much I can do with it yet. We'll get there in a moment as far as what we can begin to set up and what we can change. But now I'll go over to, I've set up my one half, so I'm going to switch over to electrical and set up the other half. So over in electrical, I have an electromechanical tab. And I've got an electromechanical link setup. So identical icons, it's going to look really similar. And this is, okay, Do you want to create a new one? Or do you want to link to one that's already out there? Well, I created that in the first instance. I created an EMX file, so I'm going to say, well, we're just going to go link to it. And I'll go pick the one that I have here and say, sounds good. So now, that's going to link these two projects together. So it's taking the information, and I've kind of completed the other half of that. In here, if I look at my, there's the link. Yeah, make sure I went. If I look at my location view, I can now see the same information in both locations. And what you're seeing is anything that has just the dot, that is a component that is an electrical component. Anything with the little 3D box symbol here, that's an Inventor component. Now to this point, nothing is linked together. So I haven't gone through and updated any of the information yet. I'll go ahead and do that in that setup and go through that portion here in just a moment. So anything that changes, it understands this information's here. I could add new components, I could remove components, but I really don't have anything linked yet. I've got the files linked. I can go ahead and sync those up. And it pushes the information to the shared folder, and they each have the information they can pull in. But to this point, not a whole lot has happened. So let's make this a little more interesting. I'll go back over here to Inventor. The link has been established. So like I said, there's a little bit of a few things I need to do kind of here on the front end to really set this up. Actually, I'm going to jump back to electrical just for a moment. One other thing I'll point out here that this information gives me is if I take a look at any one of these components, so I'm going to look at this PJ2, for example, I can see what connections it has and where they connect to. So I can see the different wires, where the information goes through, where all of that connects to, what pieces do we want to join that to. I'm going to go with this PJ1 here. So I can see that this PJ1, which is this big main guy that I have right here, how all the different pins it connects to, which pins go where, from pin to pin, all the information. So this is really where I'm going to work. You notice I've got two different things. What I've got is I've got both the jack and then the receptacle on each one of those. So I'm going to work, as I go through, you'll see I'll adjust some of this a little bit with the different pieces that I'm working on and what I want to access. So in this case, in almost every case, I'm going to work not with the jack, but with the receptacle portion. That's mostly what I have modeled in Inventor and where I really want to look at that. I don't have to see this. I just wanted to bring it up just to kind of point out it understands the connections and where they're at. So back in Inventor, I need to start setting up these links a little bit. And I want to set this up so that it understands how these link together. So as I take a look, I can see all of the information I have here. And I want to see, let me make sure I got the right one. So, oh, my bad. So I had set this up. I just need to resync this because now I thought, why couldn't I see any of my electrical things? So now I can sync it back up so that I can see there's all my electrical components, all my electrical pieces, and I'm going to go with my PJ1 that I have right here. And if I right-click on it, I can assign it to an existing component that's in my assembly. So I'm going to go assign that to this piece right over here. And what's going to happen is it's going to have a slightly different icon now. Now, those are linked together. It understands that I've taken those components and I've linked them together. So this component here is exactly the same as the other one. And that link is important. I have not named these PJ1, PJ2 here in my Inventor assembly. I'm not giving them that information. I am going through to the other side in AutoCAD Electrical. Maybe I'm calling, that's the tag that I have for it. But over here, I'm just going with the part name. So that tag information isn't there. The link is important because I can now take the tag information that I have and it pulls together with the other information that I have, and it knows that those are tied together. Whether the same name or not, whether they have the same information or not, it knows that's how those tie together. I'll just point out a couple other of these. If I go take a look at, and I'll go down to this guy right here, this connector, because this is in a wire harness, this has specific electrical properties. It knows a location, it has description information, it has an idea of how those link together. If I wanted to, I could take a look at those electrical properties and give it a specific tag. So I can tag them beforehand. I'm going to go ahead, go back to my, oh, I got the wrong one there. So if I look at the electrical properties of this one, it knows it's PJ1 now. Its component tag matches up because I specifically went in and matched it up. If I look at this one and look at its electrical properties, that one says PJ3, but it doesn't really know it yet. That's what I just tagged it to. I'll link them in a moment. But as I go through, yeah, I've got a couple called PJ3 here, it looks like. So those aren't really what I want them to be. So I can put this information in here on this side. This component tag is just the name. There is no tag to it. It doesn't know an installation and location. It doesn't know a description or catalog data. But all of that I could type in here, and then when I started pulling this together, it would try and find it and link it. But since I didn't, I'm going through and linking it. So essentially, I'm taking the extra time to do it. The catalog data, by the way, if I go look, the catalog that we use in AutoCAD Electrical is exactly the same in Inventor. It looks at the same information and can fill in the same catalog data. Okay, so I filled in one. I put my one in place there, and I'm going to go ahead and get this one over here. This is actually going to be 3. So I'm going to take a look at my PJ3. And I'm going to assign to an existing in the assembly, and I'll assign it to that. So now those are linked together. So I've got the information linked from this one to that one. And I just want to kind of go through and set that up for the rest of them that I have in here. So I'll grab PJ2, and I'll assign it. Now I can, another option that I have is I can pull things from, oh, I can't get this way. There we go, got it. I can, when I go to do this, I got 3, I'll grab 4. Yes, I went PJ4. I can insert from the catalog browser. So I could go get something right from the catalog and bring it in, bring in a specific component. It's just like inserting a piece into the assembly. It's just that I automatically want to link it. So the idea in that case would be I don't have them both drawn up in both locations. I've only got one of them in, and now I want to have a new one go across to there. I want to insert a new one based off of that. But I'm going to, lost track where it was. Okay, PJ4. I'm going to assign this to number 4 here. Yep, that side right there. And then I'll do number 5. All right, so the setup, I've gone through and run through all of the setup that I have on that. Those things are now linked together. So if I take a look at one of these and take a look at its electrical properties, it comes across with the description. It comes across with all of the different information. The location code automatically comes in. All of this is part of that. So the information comes across between the two. The other thing that can come across between the two, and this is one of the reasons that we begin to set this up, is I pointed this out a moment ago, this understands all the connections. It knows which wire numbers connect which one to the different locations. So this goes to here, this goes to here. The wire numbers come in, and all of the connection points, all the from to points, they're all here. So I want to leverage that over in my electrical design. Now, what I can do to leverage that is I can just go ahead and say create connections. And it will pull the information from AutoCAD Electrical over to here and begin placing in the wires. we have to have a harness in place for this to work, and I'm going to activate this harness. If I don't activate the harness, it'll just ask me to create a new one. But I'll go ahead and take that. Why are you still up there? I might be missing a piece. We're about to find out. I'm going to go ahead and say create a connection. And it goes through and looks at all of the wires that I have over in AutoCAD Electrical and pulls them across to Inventor. Now I get this big spaghetti mess right now because I haven't run them through their routes yet. Right now it's just going point to point, closest direction, least resistance, go ahead and put that into place. So what I can do is I'm going to just automatically route those particular wires so that they run through my harness and then connect to the different locations that we have. So there's my 6 wires coming off of there. I've got 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. Oh, I bet. Let's see, am I missing 2? Yep, I did not wire this one up yet. But I've got my different locations in place. As it goes through, it picks all of that up. I may need to run a couple more in here so that I can bring this back and, again, share that information back and forth. So I'll do that in just a second. For right now, the idea is if I bring the information in from one of those tools, I can send it right over to the next one. So taking a look at this particular harness, I've got it where I want it to go. I've got the wires in place, and I need to place in a couple more components, a couple more wires as part of this. Let me just check something here real quick. Finish out my cable. And 0, 0 size. Okay, so it's that one right there. Which one are you? I got 1, I got 2, I got 3, I got 4, I got 5. I just need to add another connector. So as I put this in and I've got this information in, I'm going to add one more piece over on the other side, and then we'll connect that together because I want to show that round trip of if I adjust it in one place, how it links into the other. So let's jump back over here to my AutoCAD Electrical. So I've got over here, and I'm just going to do the sync up over here. Again, on this side, it looks almost identical in terms of how these are linked together. Did I get it? Yep, synced up. Perfect. So I can see how these different pieces are linked together, which ones are linked to each other, the different connections between the two, where all the pieces are, where the information comes in. And that link back and forth is pretty important because, again, if I change it in one, it's going to change in the other. The way I set it up, though, is if there's a conflict, electrical takes over. We're letting electrical drive that so that it has all the information. So if I take a look, it says power seat main switch. That's what I have for that PJ1, my big connector. That's the title of it. So where that's coming from is right over here. There's my title, power seat main switch. And I'm just going to edit this component over here. I'll just call it main connector. I just want to give it something different just so we can see that link within there. I'll say, okay, sounds good. It updates here. I'm going to save that. And I can set this up to sync on every save or to sync every 15 minutes. For the purposes of this, I'm doing it so quickly, I'm manually going in and syncing that information. I'm pushing it out. So then I'll come over here, make sure we've got that synced up, which we do because I just pushed it. And if I look at the information over here, we should see the update come through for that. So if I look at my electrical properties, yep, should we say main connector? So where's my sync? There we go, so it should be synced up. So it pulls the information, or at least it should if I get it in. While I am, oh, let me save this real quick. Now I should pull it in. Well, I lied. So, but if I change it in one, it should pull the information directly across to the other, and I'm not sure where I hit a wrong button somewhere, so that we get that switch running across. So as this pushes, what it's doing is it's using that shared folder to look at the information. That's where it's going to pull it from so that we have that to be correct in there. The idea is I can take whatever wiring I want from this right over to that. So we can do this. One of the next questions really is, why do we do this? And one of them is exactly what we're seeing here. If I take a look at this drawing, I have no indication of wire lengths, the distance between these. This is not how that looks over there, obviously. I don't have this one in the middle with these kind of coming off of it and the other components over here. So how does all this fit together? Over here in the 3D world, we've got that clear understanding of how that fits together and where all that information is. So I can understand the relationship between them. I can also look at things such as interference. I'm looking at the routing that I have of this. I can say, well, yeah, that one fits through there, and I can do interference detection, and I can check for those different types of things. And then another big key to this is I can create drawings right off of this. So once I've got the basic idea, set up, and I've got some of this information, I can create a nail board drawing from my harness that I have here. I'll go ahead and bring it in. So this creates my nail board, and it really just takes that harness that I have and it stretches it all out so that I've got it in these different locations. And then you notice I've got my segments, I've got the different wires. They're going to be numbered just the same as they are in AutoCAD Electrical. It pulled all of that right across there. And now I can come in and bring in some of the other different types of things that I may want to pull out from that. So for example, I could create a table, and not based off of that, based off of this view that I have. Oh, I created an empty one, I apologize. But based off that view that I have, so that I can call in lengths and the different information that I have for that. I can put in some basic dimensions so I can understand what's the total length of what we have here. How long, what's the overall length of our harness. All of that can be done right within the nail board tools. So now, instead of just the schematic, I've got the physical representation of this and what I want that to look like. So I can take the information that we work with from electrical, bring it across, and then once I have it within here, deal with the different segments that I have. So I've got lengths, I understand the diameter, all the different information that I have for that coming right into here, what wires and cables run through here, what gauges, anything information that I want to have as part of that begins to show up. So it's easy to create the drawings from it, create all the other different pieces that I have for that, and I'll create just some connector views here at the end. So those are the different connectors that that's going to lock into so that we can see that information as well. And that view information, all it's doing is it's getting it right from the AutoCAD Electrical, getting it right from the Inventor model. So it's pulling that information right off the Inventor model to go in and create the additional information that I'm seeing over here so that I can have those different lengths, different information as part of that. Other key things I can do, I'll go back over to just my harness area. And you can begin to run different reports that we might want to run through here. So I want to run a report, and actually I want to create not an output file. I want to close that one out. But I can base it off an existing file that I have, and then the different types of reports that we can create would be wire length reports, color reports, gauges, all of that different type of information that we can begin extracting off of that. So we not only have this visual representation here, we've created the harness right down to the nail board drawings with the different views that we have associated to it. The only information I added was the direction of the harness, and I had the components in themselves. Everything else came directly off of my AutoCAD Electrical. So that's really how we would want to put that in so that we can begin extracting that. I'm going to finish this off with just one little piece here. I'm going to go back to my schematic, and I'm going to insert a connector, and I just want a little 2-pin connector. Oh, that's it, 2. And pin list is fine. We'll go with it just like that. So I'm just going to place this piece in so that I can put this in and place it where I want it to be. So I want this to be vertical. Let's see, right about there. Well, they didn't like what I found there. Okay. So I'll go ahead and place that in. And then this is where I can begin wiring this up and then calling it out to the other. Now, I'm a little concerned because it didn't find my, didn't find the right piece I was looking for. Let me try it one more time. And then I'll go on to, see, I want my connector. I agree with that. That's fine. That's fine, that's fine. I'm not sure what piece I'm missing. And flip that to the other side. Actually, no, I do want it like that. I lied. There we go. So I'm calling it out. I'm giving it a specific name that I have here. And again, I can give it description data, location codes, and the location code I have is, I'll just say this is the passenger seat, which is, I believe, where everything else was as well. Say, okay, that sounds good. So I've called out some basic information on that, and then I'll just put in the wires, not wire numbers. I'll put in a couple of quick wires that I want for this thing. So I'll go here, over to there, and here, over to there. Now I've added to my list over here, because I've added into this additional information, my my PJ6 appears right over here. It's a new component that I have. I should be able to sync that up. And then see that PJ6 appear in my list over on the other side. So if I take a look at my components, and I can sync that, I now have my PJ6 that appears over here. So I want to assign that to something. So I'll say, yep, let's go ahead and I'll take that and I'll assign it to something that's in here. PJ6 is actually this guy right over here. Say, hey, that sounds good. I've got some wiring. I've got some information. And if I did it all correctly, I should be able to create a connection for that information. Oh, I need to be in my harness. Like I said, if you're not in the harness, it's going to want to create a new one. And we'll see passenger seat, create connection. And it's going to grab my 2 new wires for me. Oh, I wired the wrong one. Went the wrong way. But now you can see it's going to create the connection, put the wires in for me, and then I can just go ahead and do the automatic route, just to route those so that they come through, come around, and go to where I need them to be. The big idea here is if I change it over in electrical, we can use that to map through to this. So now we've got a single location, a single source of truth, being the electrical drawing. That's where all my electrical information comes from. And then we've got the mechanical side where all of that comes from. The nice thing is being able to match those up so we've got them in both locations. So that's kind of the big broad overview of how those work together, the idea of using the EMX file in between, and the idea of syncing that information back and forth. If I update it in one, we push it across and have it update within the other. What I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any questions anyone would have on that. So Jana, I didn't know if any had come in so far.
Yes, one moment while I end today's recording.